take responsibility, raise your hand. That is the first step in leadership. And when you do that, good things happen. You lead at every level of the organization. You don't have to have a staff. You don't have to be managing a single person. As long as you're taking responsibility for your fractal, your area, then you're leading and you're going to get that done. I notice people that are taking more responsibility, that are stepping up and leading in their area and what is seemingly beyond their responsibility level.
Happy birthday to you.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the No Have Cakes podcast. My name is Jim Sabelico. I am your host on this journey, and I just wanted to thank you for being along with me on this ride. This is one of my favorite versions of the show where I sit down with a guest, someone who's done something in life. This particular guest has been around in the leadership game for, I believe, 29 years as a CEO, and that is a long freaking time to lead people. And I know this conversation is going to be empowering. It's going to help us learn about what it takes to be a leader in your business as well as your own life. There are so many important things I think that I can take away from talking about leadership. And I know our guest today is someone who's got that experience to share with us. So without further ado, I just want to introduce our guest, Mr. Barry Moline. Barry, thank you for joining me.
Jim, it's great to be with you. Let's get after it.
Let's do it. So tell me a little bit about, I know you've got a ton of experience in the leadership space. What does that journey look like for you? Kind of how did you climb the ladder to that? Was that always the goal for you to be a CEO, to be a leader, or like what did the early days look like for you?
I've thought about leadership issues a lot. And when I think about the arc of my life, I've gone back to 16-year-old Barry at a moment when I stepped up and took a leadership responsibility. And I'll tell you the story. And what I think is interesting about the story that I'm about to tell you is that we all have these stories in our lives. And because I've sort of taken the time, I haven't done it in therapy, but I literally have gone through and tried to figure out, like, why have I taken responsibility? Why have I stepped up and led? And I've, sort of like gone backwards. And this is the moment where I can recall, and I use it as a touchstone even today, when I'm feeling like, I guess, this is a leadership moment. And it happened when I was 16. Well, when I was 10, I started to play hockey. I grew up in Chicago. And at the age of 16, I went to a hockey, summer camp. I loved hockey. It was just, it was a gas. And I had a good time playing, got a little bit better playing. And we had one session from a referee who said, hey, let me teach you some things about the rules of hockey, which I really wasn't, wasn't that knowledgeable about, but still playing the game, for a while, knew the basics. And he said, and if you want to make some money doing the thing that you like, being on the ice a little bit more, you can become a referee. You just have to learn the rule book and then we'll assign you games. So I got in touch with this referee when we got back to Chicago, and I started to referee games very soon thereafter, very young kids. And I picked it up fast. I liked rules. I liked learning the rule book, and they started to give me games with more responsibility at a little higher level. And by more responsibility, I was a 16-year-old refereeing in men's league games. These are sort of like late night games. I still play hockey today. I still play and referee today. And this is like 55 years later. And they call it beer league, because people are out there playing hockey and they're just really trying to get to the beer afterwards, So, and That was all good. I was learning. I was really enjoying it. I was getting paid a little bit and just having fun. And toward the end of my rookie year, I got assigned an important game. They call it juniors, but it's not little kids. It's the level right below college. So it was a very high level game, and it was between two very competitive teams. I was assigned to be the secondary official. They have a like soccer. You see an official in the middle of the field, and then you see two guys with flags on either side. I was like one of the people with flags, so I was the linesman, and so I wasn't assigned to be the referee. Showed up for the game about an hour before, and then people were coming in. I mean, it was a big game. I went to the referee's locker room, and there were two other officials that were sort of at my level. I knew them, and we all looked at each other and said, "Which one of you is the referee?" And we all like shrugged our shoulders and said, "Well, not me, not me." And I sat down. I was the third one of these people to come in. We figured the quote unquote referee would come anytime. So I figured I wasn't going to be working that day, but I got dressed anyway. And nobody came. About 15 minutes before, the official scorekeeper came in and said, "Which one of you is the referee?" And I looked at the other two guys, and one of them, like, his eyes lit up, like, not me. And the other one was like, he shrunk down to like, "Not me." And I raised my hand and I said, "I am." And he said, "Well, good. This is an important game. These two teams are vying for the number one spot. You got to call it really tight." And I said, "Great. Thanks for that. I'll see you out there." He left the room, and the other two guys are like, thank you for doing this." And I was like, what did I just do? I wasn't sure if I was capable of this. These were, like just a level below professionals. Anyway, I put on those referee armbands, the orange armbands, and we walked out toward the rink, and there were a lot of people in the lobby, and it was like, Moses at the Red Sea. The crowd split. I was glad that I was wearing skates because I was like 3 inches taller, and we walked out on the ice, and I got the puck from the scorekeeper, went out to center ice. I yelled what I do at the beginning of every game. I did this last night because I refereed last night, like a college game last night. And I yelled out, "Everybody, let's play a great game." And I dropped the puck. The game is going just fine. About 2 minutes into the game, we had a face-off. It was in the corner, so I didn't conduct the face-off as one of the linesmen. And my position is about 20 feet away. The linesman is getting ready to drop the puck. And just as he drops the puck, one of the players from one of the teams goes in early, gets the puck, and starts taking off down the ice on a breakaway. And I blow the whistle. And I said, "Number 8 was in the circle too early." And I pointed at him and I said, "If you do that again, you're out." And I turned back and I went to my position. And everybody in the ice was like, "Oh, man, who's this guy? Okay, well, he must be in charge." And I'm thinking to myself, like, "Oh, man, I hope these people aren't angry with me, or at least the people that I took away a breakaway from. I hope nobody knows that I'm just a little 16-year-old. Fortunately, we're all wearing helmets and they can't tell how old you are." And, and then suddenly, the linesman dropped the puck. And the rest of the game went great. There was one penalty. It was for tripping. There was no fighting, which was unusual for a hockey game. And the word got out after this game that I had stepped up and volunteered for this game at the last minute and did a good job. And suddenly I got assigned more and more of these kinds of games, with this high level responsibility. So that happened when I was 17. And when I was 18, I was getting more and more assignments like this, and I was getting assigned college games. And it was like, wow, this is really nice. So, they were I was being groomed for something, but I just thought it was this, this higher level of college level games. And at 18, when I finished the season at 18, the uh, my section in Chicago uh, got in touch with the NHL, and the NHL invited me to training camp for hockey officials. So I went to training camp in the summer of my 18th year, and then from there started refereeing in the minor leagues. So I was refereeing in the Midwest International Hockey League, and it was from Wisconsin, Minnesota down to Kentucky, and I would drive every once a week, once during the week, once on the weekends, and it was quite a grind. And then uh, I got an assignment to referee an NHL game. And the way it works with officials is that they work in minor league officials into the NHL, so they get experience over time. I'm sorry this story has taken a long time, but I'm telling you that it has a good punchline. So I got assigned my first game. It was the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals. And I get out on the ice, and there's a lot of folks all around, a lot of people in the stands. You try not to look up too much. And I got that puck at center ice, and I've got all-star player Bobby Carpenter from the Washington Capitals on my left, and I've got future Hall of Famer Mario Lemieux on my right. And I say what I always do at the beginning of every game. I yell out, "Everybody, let's play a great game." And Mario Lemieux, in a millisecond, says, he's really tall, so he looks down on me, and he says, "Hey, buddy." And I look up at him, and I said, "What?" And he said, "Drop the effing puck." Which I did. I just dropped the puck. But as I skated back and was following a play, I thought to myself, man, all this is happening because I just raised my hand when I was 16. And then I was like, get your head in the game, because the puck is flying around fast. And that concept of raising your hand, taking responsibility, is the principal element. It's like the first element of leadership. If there's an opportunity to do something needs to get done, you need to raise your hand and say, yeah, I can do that. Or even if you're not quite sure, like I wasn't quite sure, you're probably capable of doing it. And if you're not, somebody else will come along and help, or you'll develop a committee to do it. People, we need leadership in the world. We need people to step up and take responsibility. And there's so many chances to do that. Take responsibility, raise your hand. That is the first step in leadership. And when you do that, good things happen. I mean, it happened to me when I get into a situation, and I get into lots of situations or I have in my career, where I was like, I'm not really sure about this. I've just learned this issue. You know what? I probably know that issue just as well as anyone else, or I'm going to study on it and get to know it quickly, and I'll probably be okay. And I would say that 99.9% of the times that I've volunteered to do something and I wasn't quite sure, it's worked out just fine. So number one, take responsibility. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned in leadership.
Yeah, first of all, that's an amazing story. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I've got so many different ways that I want to just continue to expand that conversation. But the first one is, I think, just to give you some credit for the art of storytelling and being able to weave a narrative in there, right? Because it's storytelling as a leader, I think, is an important skill to be able to make something relatable to people, right? Because if you just said, hey, need you to step up and do more than what is asked of you, and most people would be like, all right, yeah, man, I don't really care. But when you tell the story and you make it relatable, right, it grabs their attention and makes them kind of understand the concept and pull it into their own life. So you can certainly tell you've been in the leadership game a long time. But I really want to go back to, what you said about stepping up, raising your hand and being the one to volunteer, right? Because there's the expression, when you do more than what you're paid for, eventually you'll be paid for more than what you do, right? So like when you step up and you volunteer to be that person to go forward, even if maybe, let's say you're the receptionist at your office and you think, hey, I'm just a receptionist, I don't have this big impact on the growth of the company. But when you realize you're a vital part of the team, and even if you think you're quote unquote just a receptionist or whatever your position is, if it's just an entry level in the corporate ladder, you have the ability to step up and do more, right? No one's preventing you from being all that you can be. And I think a lot of people look at leadership as something that is given to you, right? They say, hey, you are a leader because you have followers. I'm giving you followers. That's why you're a leader. And I think, would you say it's more important to be a leader just by making the decision to show up and lead rather than be given a title?
Oh, absolutely. My philosophy on leadership is you lead at every level of the organization. You don't have to have a staff. You don't have to be managing a single person. As long as you're taking responsibility for your fractal, your area, then you're leading and you're going to get that done. The worst thing that anyone can say is, that's above my pay grade. Leaders want to hear from other people about their opinion. I have a staff of subject matter experts. I don't know the details about what they do. They need to tell me what's going on, and then we collaborate on a decision. And I depend on them to lead in their area, and then they do. And in fact, it's funny that you mentioned that. I love that phrase about doing more than
What you're asked for.
What you're asked for, because I notice people that are taking more responsibility, that are stepping up and leading in their area, and what is seemingly beyond their responsibility level.
Right.
And when I see that, I note it, and I'll tell them, do more of that. That's a good thing. And then seek to reward them. I think one of the characteristics of a senior manager is to see in people, I shouldn't say a senior manager, of really any manager or supervisor, is to see in people what they don't see in themselves. We go through life and, there are a handful of people that are constantly promoting themselves, but not a lot of people. Most folks are sort of underplaying it. We're doing the best job we can where we are. When somebody else sees that we have some capability, wow. I mean, what a confidence booster that is when somebody tells us that. And it's the job of a manager to say, you have these skills. I want you to develop those even further. And maybe, here's some skills that you don't have. I want you to develop those too, to become a more well-rounded manager. And those are just ways to elevate yourself. Nevertheless, always take on that. I hate to come back to responsibility. Always come back to that opportunity to excel and to do good things, because maybe they might not notice right here, right now. I mean, if you're feeling like these people around me, they don't know what I'm doing, but eventually people will. You have to find your right crew who will notice it. And as long as you go through life continuing to do good things, to step up and lead, then you'll become that. You are that natural leader, and you'll get noticed, you'll get recognized.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think that touches on another important point there, is that, and obviously I want your feedback on this thought, but the ability to lead yourself first before you can lead others, right? And I think how important it is for you to be a good leader is for you to be able to lead yourself in everything you do, and to have that same standard of excellence in how clean you keep your desk, how you show up, like literally every part of that. And to a degree, I think if you are able to lead yourself first, right, and really check that box to make sure you are doing a good job of leading yourself, the approval from others doesn't matter. Right? Because you know at the end of the day, you have a standard to uphold, and you are leading yourself. You are doing the thing that you said you were going to do. If someone else doesn't see it, it doesn't really matter as much because you know you're doing the right thing and you're leading yourself in the right way, and the rest of it will fall into place. Would you agree?
Yeah. They say that ethics is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And leadership is the same way. It's taking on that leadership role when no one is expecting you to, when you don't really have to, but it's still doing that right thing or doing a project in the right way and not cutting corners. That is the that key action. It's in taking that responsibility for your own actions. Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's another saying too that good leaders, give out more credit and take more blame. Right. So a good leader will be the one who gives the credit to other people, not looking for the credit for themselves. Right. And it goes along with yet another expression that when I talk to a manager, I feel like they are important. When I talk to a leader, I feel like I am important.
Yeah.
Because a leader should be one to inspire other people to see the best versions of themselves.
Well, there's a selfish way to look at giving credit to others. And that is, if you're a manager and you're leading a team, everything that happens on that team is a reflection on you. So I don't really think about it that way that I just said it, but literally everything that happens in my organization, I don't have to worry about taking the credit because I know I'm going to get the credit.
Right.
And the credit is not like, you did great on that project, Barry, and you did great on that project. Our team did great on that project, and we all did great, and that's what's most important. So, a coach of, pick a sport, baseball, football, where anything, they're calling the plays. They're helping the players get in the right position to excel, but it's the players that have to execute.
Right.
So helping the players do their jobs, that's the core of that manager, is helping, playing the right notes, all 88 keys on the piano. So that's how I see my role, is constantly, giving others the chance to excel, and then definitely giving them the credit. And again, I don't go out seeking the credit, but occasionally the credit comes back at me. And all I think about is that I've just put together the team and played the piano the right way so that I've freed my team up to go out and then get the job done. So that's what feels really good to me, when everybody is working well together.
I agree completely. And it made me think of something that, when you said that about the team and the manager, it made me think about how many little kids do you think there are that have the poster on the wall of the MVP of the team versus the manager of the team? How many posters do you ever even see for sale of the manager of the team? Zero. Right? They're not the ones who are getting the glory and the credit, but how important is it that they show up and they give their all and they put the people on the team in the best position to win?
Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me think a lot about how healed you have to be in ego and pride to be a leader, where you're not looking for that recognition for yourself. You're in it for the recognition, or I guess for the glory of the team, not necessarily yourself. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know when it happened in my career, but at some point I stopped worrying about, I actually, there was an incident that really sort of shook me a bit. And I'll tell you the story. It's not a long story. And I realized that in this moment that it wasn't about me anymore. And it was a pretty big issue. I was in Florida my job in the electric utility industry was to work in mutual aid. And that means that when you're watching the news after a hurricane hits and you see all these trucks on the highway going to the place that has just been destroyed, I'm the one that put the trucks there. I'm the one that called the utilities and got those trucks on the road to go and help. And a bad hurricane had hit somewhere in, well, actually, it was 2007. We had 4 hurricanes that went through the state, and we had a lot of help from other utilities. So we had a lot of trucks on the road. The hurricanes hit in a sort of like in a 2-month period. So one hit, 2-3 weeks later, we had another one. 2-3 weeks later, we had another one. And our team was exhausted. I was leading that team. I was exhausted, after that 2-month period. And, it was rough. It was rough on our families. It was rough on our staff. In one of the hurricanes, a tree fell on my house. So I had to work at figuring out what to do, with my own personal life, while also giving it up and going to work immediately and helping out, those people that were hurt in our state. And after it was all done, one of my member utilities I sort of announced in a meeting some big recognition of me. And I remember this moment because I was up on stage at a conference and I was making an announcement, and it was just something about, okay, today at this meeting, here's the agenda or something like that. It was something innocuous. And then the president of our association just comes walking up the aisle and comes walking up on stage. And I'm thinking to myself, Lloyd, no, you're not on stage right now. You're on in like about, 35 minutes. And he just keeps coming. And he just comes up to the podium and says, step aside, Barry. And then, he talks about what we had gone through. And I was shocked because I felt like, even though we had been working for, what felt like 80 hours a week for a couple months, I felt like, well, that was just our job. That's what we needed to do because there were a lot of people that were hurting across the state. It wasn't just utility. It was, the people of Florida were hurt. And he said, step back, let's look at some perspective here. And he described what was going on. And he effectively wanted to give me all the responsibility. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, this was not just me. This was a crowd of people that we were working together on. And anyway, he gave me some accolades. I said thank you. I turned the spotlight over to a variety of people that were sitting in the audience and people that weren't there that all stepped up. But the bottom line was, it felt to me like, hey, this is my job. I love this job, and I'm doing it because it's helping people in the real world, and that's my focus. That's what I'm just going to do. And then, out of the blue, that recognition came, and I reflect on it not as something that like, oh, this is something cool that I did. I think about, now, who out there can I recognize? Who is doing their job and doing a great job and not even realizing the concentric circles of impact that they're having, on their team, on the results of the organization, on profits, on helping society, whatever that might be. Those are the people that I need to recognize in my role.
Right. Yeah, I love that story. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that people have this innate need for these 4 basic things to feel loved, seen, appreciated, and heard. And I feel like in that story, that recognition is that, right? So you are feeling seen, you are feeling loved for doing that. And it does empower you, right? It does fill up your cup to be able to go out there and also then do that same thing for other people on your team, right? I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's such an important aspect of good teams is the ability to make other people feel that way, feel like they do have a contribution, even though it might be small, even though it might be, hey, your only job is to answer the phone and take in the mail from the post office. But you do that in such a freaking great way that you are the first contact, the first smile, the first, the front line for the company. And you set such a great example, like giving that person that recognition sets the standard for everybody else. And I think that's such an important part of having a team is that the passing of appreciation and making everyone feel great for their contributions.
Yeah, absolutely. The last word you said there, being heard, is one of the difficult sort of speed bumps that I've had to, I don't know, deal with, get over in my career. I feel like, having fierce conversations is really important, but they're not just me telling people, straighten up or get out. They are asking people around me, tell me how I can be better, and then sitting back and shutting up and letting them tell you. And if they're holding back, then asking them to be a little more brutally honest. You're not telling me the whole story here. And I've had people tell me some tough things about, just from their perspective. They want to be heard. I want them to get their concerns off their chest. And sometimes I may feel like what they're saying is wrong, but it's still their opinion and it's from their perspective. Most of the time, I get some good advice. I've got a blind spot. I didn't notice something that I was doing that was offensive or was putting the thumb on somebody's career or that's whatever. Just I didn't realize the impact of my own actions, and every time I've gotten over that experience now. We've changed our performance evaluations. In every case, we sort of move to, and my staff knows this, that I'll ask, what do I need to do to help you succeed? And I'm relentless when we get to that question. And because staff has already identified the kind of things that they want to do, actions they want to take. And I'll go through each one of the actions that they have and say, what do I need to do? Do I need to remind you more frequently? Do I need to say something a certain way? Am I saying something a certain way that is stopping you from doing something? And whatever it is, I want them to feel as though they've got a cheerleader in their corner, somebody who wants them to succeed. And if I'm impeding that in some way, then I want to make sure that I'm changing my behavior to help them. And the reflection of that, probably one of the things that I'm most satisfied about in my own career is that I haven't had a lot of turnover of staff. I mean, people move around and that's okay. Sometimes there's a better responsibility somewhere else. Nevertheless, it feels good when people stick around because they like it. They feel encouraged. And, we try to do a variety of things in the world of work to make sure that people are properly compensated, have good benefits, have good work-life balance, and so on. But also that they have a good connection to me, the manager. And know that I'm supporting them. To me, that's key. And I have a relationship, a radio relationship with, we're a small enough company with only 15 people, with every single person. And I know a little bit about what's going on in their life, and just enough to be able to ask them a personal question once in a while to know that I've been paying attention. And then we have a conversation about what's going on in their life. And it doesn't have to be long, but it has to, I have to actually show that I'm interested. And I do. I try to be interested in what's going on in everybody's life. And then when we pivot to, what needs to get done at work, people just say, I kind of like this place. I'm not really sure why, but I kind of like it. And I do think that's important for managers to know their employees, know their what's going on in their world, know what drives them. And if there's a career move that they want to make, and we can do it in the organization, I want to help them do that. And if it's somewhere else, then I want to help them do that too, because I want what's best for them. And actually, I'll tell you that about, sort of like advancing in your career. Every time that I've asked somebody, like, what's your career goal? Where do you want to be? And they tell me, well, I want Joe's job. And Joe's sitting in his office, a different office somewhere else. That's where I'd like to be. It's like, well, you can't have Joe's job today, but I understand what you're asking for is more responsibility, more authority. You want to help the organization. Well, let me think about that. And maybe there's a way that I can get you more responsibility and maybe more salary, because you're stepping up and you're showing that you want to lead. So it helps just to say that alone. I have a friend who was an entry-level engineer, and he divulged that to his boss. He said, answered the question of, like, where do you want to end up in this company? He said, well, I'd really like to be the CEO someday. And he didn't mean that he wanted to be CEO next year. And his boss said, well, that's a good goal, and let's see what we can do to get you there. And that boss put him in the company's leadership development program just because he said, that he had that ultimate goal. And that helped him learn the organization. And he didn't become the CEO of that organization, but he did become the CEO of a different organization. And that's, pretty incredible that if you have that comfort level with a supervisor to be able to say, well, yeah, I really would like to take on more responsibility here. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm ready for it. And that boss hopefully will then look for those opportunities for you.
Yeah, Matt's so good. I think we could probably sum that up by saying, be a good human and do the right thing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so simple, but I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you've seen it too. You get a manager who wants to try and get more out of their people, right? They want to try and wring them out like a wet towel and try and see how much work can come out, instead of trying to just do the best thing for them, even if it means they leave the company and go somewhere else because it better suits their goals and vision, right? They look at, how do I get the most for my company? It's this very protective thing where they're using the people within the organization as pawns in the game, right? They're nothing more but numbers. They're just, part of the machine, rather than trying to figure out, hey, how do I do the right thing by this person? Listen to, what is their home life going on? What is it that makes them tick outside of the 9 to 5? Because once I figure that out, once I understand it, I know how to best support this person. And a person who is appreciated will do far more than a person who just shows up to the 9 to 5, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much. They want to be at work. We think that we're working at a job for the salary, for the benefits, for the thing that we're doing. But we're really there because we want to contribute to the world in some way. And every job contributes to the world. There's an old story, I don't know if it's true. John Kennedy went to tour NASA after he, set the goal to go to the moon, and he's getting a tour of the facilities, and comes across a custodian and says to him, "What do you do around here?" And the guy says, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." And everybody in the organization was, had this singular goal. And he was helping to put a man on the moon because the actions that he was taking make everyone else's job easier and better so that they can do their own job.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you a funny story. I took that story and I told it just the way I just described it, put it in ChatGPT to say, make a picture of that. President Kennedy talking to a custodian at NASA. And it created this image that has somebody looking like John Kennedy and somebody, looking like a custodian, with a mop and in a big room. And it says NASA behind it. And it also has the space shuttle behind it too. And it's like, wait, was the space shuttle around when John Kennedy was president? No, I don't think so, but that's ChatGPT for you. Anyway, it was just kind of funny. But still, the point is that we are all contributing to the big goal of the organization. And actually, I think that it is of the role of a manager to remind people what our joint purpose is. Yeah, we're all in our lane doing our thing, but each one of us as a spoke in the wheel of the organization is contributing to the operation of that full organization. And without those individual spokes, the wheel gets weaker. So it's important for all of us to do our job, but also to maintain perspective that we're all contributing.
Right. Yeah, I think, a big part of being a great leader is being a great cheerleader, right? And being a mirror for the people in your organization to help them see their own best selves, their own potential, and their contribution, even though it might not seem as glorious as first person to step on the moon, right? But it's just as important in enabling the whole company to reach that goal. Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to ask you a couple other questions if we can before we kind of close out here. If you had one bit of advice to give someone, one tactical tip that they could walk out in their day today to have a slightly better day, to lead better, to show up better, to experience joy, what piece of advice would you give that person?
I think that we could talk about things like develop trust or be a better communicator or be positive or something like that. A cornerstone of what I think is my success is something that is fairly sort of basic and foundational, and that is just having grit and persistence. And I've been told no by a lot of people in my life. And I don't recall anybody saying anything to me about persistence, but I've just heard no and said, well, I guess you're just not the right person to work with. So I'll work with someone else or try this with someone else or write down the idea and set it aside and maybe we'll come back to it next year, whatever it might be. I've found that being persistent is an attitude, part of my attitude that has gotten me past a lot of seemingly, insurmountable barriers. And, like I said, we could turn to a variety of elements about, leadership mindset and so on, don't gossip or stay calm in adversity, that one characteristic of persistence has moved me past so many places where people didn't see in me, some particular skill. So maybe I just thought, well, I guess I need to work harder at it, and get a little bit better at it. Or maybe I need to change the venue and move from this organization to a different organization. Whatever it was, I've had that sort of, I've been confronted by issues where I've had to persist through them or try over and over, and it's worked, and my biggest regret in life is that no one encouraged me to learn archery when I was a teenager, because I look at archery in the Olympics. Now, let me just say that Olympic archers are really good. But I think I could have done that. And I could have been an Olympian if somebody said, consider archery. It's in the Olympics. And, you don't have to be the fastest person in the world, but you can hold that bow and arrow pretty steady. Anyway, but had I just been told that, I would have persisted and been an Olympic archer. So, but seriously, I can tell you that throughout my life, it's just been like, well, that didn't work this way. Let's think about it another way. Is there another way we can accomplish this goal? And that has sort of bolstered me and given me confidence that, so we ran into a brick wall this time. Where does the wall end? Let's get around it some other way.
Yeah, I agree. And just a quick side note, you got 4 more years for the next one, so it's not too late to start now.
That is true. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And maybe I can use, their shooting. That's another, although, skeet shooting isn't easy, but I've got to set my sights on it.
Yeah, no pun intended. So the question I have next for you would be, what does success look like for you? What's your definition of success?
We often think about success as that endpoint. We've completed a project and it's done. We got a new client. Yay. We finished a report. Yeah. I love the process of getting stuff done, of working well with people. And I think about success as all the signposts, along the way. And even if we don't have a positive outcome, we learn something from the process. So I'm really into just let's keep going along the process, and don't worry, good things will work out or will happen if we just follow the process. So I think success is just being in the game and taking the step every single day. And when you do that, you feel good. You put in a good day's work. You spend a good day with your children, your family, whatever that might be, your friends, whatever that might be. And we just, we're engaged in that moment. That to me, I've learned over time is success. It's not just that ultimate pinnacle, the report that's complete. It's not that. It's all the stuff along the way that went into it. And it's almost a letdown when that thing is done. It's like, dang, we don't get to continue to enjoy that anymore. While we're in it, let's do what we can to enjoy every moment and to feel like we're contributing at every moment.
Yeah. So success is more of a journey than a destination for you. That fair?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's not a moniker, a bumper sticker. It actually is true. It's being engaged with other people and trying to figure out a problem, and just doing that is really interesting and fun. And then when it's over, it's like, oh man, we don't get to engage and figure things out anymore. It's too easy. Let's tackle the hard stuff, because that's the part that I feel is like engaging to the nth degree.
Yeah. Then you get to level up and do it again.
That's right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One of the best parts of the journey. So my last question for you is a question that's a curveball a bit, but one of my favorite questions, hands down. What is your favorite flavor of cake?
the good news is that my wife and I just went to Rick's Dessert Diner. I live in Sacramento, California, one of the best dessert places on the planet. Crowded almost every hour of the day, a good line, frequently. And we were like ogling over all the desserts last Friday night after we saw a play and had a good look at a variety of desserts. And we're thinking, should we get the chocolate? Should we get the vanilla? Should we get the ice cream? So I have a really good dose of the universe of desserts. So I thought all the other questions you asked me earlier were curveballs. So this one is just a straight on, softball. And you didn't realize that. So I was staring at that carrot cake, and the carrot cake was just phenomenal. So whatever. It's carrot cake with that sour cream icing, and that's my favorite cake. And I was, you didn't know that, but I was really ready for that question.
All right, good. I'm glad. Yeah, the reason why it often winds up being a curveball is because I find a lot of people have some core memory behind why, right? Why is carrot cake your favorite flavor of cake? Was there some like core memory where it was maybe like a relative's recipe in the past or something like that? I've always found there's so much history tied to these little things that we don't often examine.
There's two things that the carrot cake inspires in me. So I'm glad that you followed up. One is that when my wife and I went to Rick's Dessert Diner on Friday night, we did it sort of on a whim, and we were having a really good time. Just like I say, looking at all the desserts and just, like we were kids in a candy store, right? Kids in a dessert shop. And I was loving that moment. And when I was describing us looking at all the cakes, what I was really thinking about was how my wife and I were connecting and just enjoying that moment together. It was just, I don't know, we were just having a good time and acting like little kids. And then related to that is a second element that just by chance involves my wife, and that is that we both have different tastes in desserts, but we both agree on carrot cake. So when we saw that carrot cake and it looked so good and we got the carrot cake, then I knew that this was going to be a shareable moment together.
Yeah.
But even still, as you were describing or asking that question, and I was imagining what it was like, that's what was going through my mind, is how much fun we were having and having that connected moment.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's what this is all about, right? And it's amazing to be an amazing leader, to be an amazing CEO, but if you don't have these moments where you can just be in joy and enjoy the simple things, where you can, Google over some desserts and share a piece of carrot cake with your wife, that to me is operating in success, where you have that joy, not just, in your office, but you have that same level of joy and success in the rest of your life. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing that with me. And of course, thank you for sharing all of this with me. It's been a great conversation. I've learned a lot about leadership and your perspectives on it. And I just want to thank you for that and honor you for sharing that.
Jim, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Anywhere we can best support you?
Well, at this moment, no, but I'm sure we'll continue talking. I look forward to that.
All right. Well, you're officially part of the tribe. So any way that we can support in the future, you just reach out and we're here for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.